regular monthly meeting of the City of Independence Board of Adjustment. The board was created by the city charter to hear applications for variances from the zoning ordinance requirements and to hear and render decisions on interpretations of the requirements of the zoning ordinance. The board consists of 5 voting members. It requires 4 affirmative votes for approval of any variance or interpretation. All cases on the agenda will be heard in the order listed. The order of proceeding for each case shall be as follows. Applicant shall present his case. Persons in favor of the variance shall present their evidence. Persons opposed to the variance shall present their evidence. The applicant shall be given a rebuttal period, and the public hearing, the last, will be closed and no further testimony will be accepted. The normal procedure is that the board will discuss and take action on the application. All meetings of the board are open to the public. Anyone in the audience who thinks that for any reason they will speak before the board tonight, please stand and please wait a minute here. Please stand and take the oath. I'll get it right here in a minute. Whoever's planning on speaking to the board tonight.
Ask those people if they're going to be speaking.
Are you folks going to be speaking tonight? Okay. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth in all matters pertaining to the cases before the Board of Adjustment? Please say I do. Please be seated. All right. Roll call. We've got Roy Brown, Jack Lehman,
here,
Dan Sunderland,
here,
and John Davies,
here,
and Robert Jones, that's me. The first case on the agenda tonight is continued hearing that we've continued about 3 months, and it's case number 18999-12, Douglas Odell Toff. All right, hold on just a minute. And are you here to speak before the board? Okay. And the first one is a variance request for the setback requirements for the property at 1400 South Franklin Drive. So do you want to come before and give?
We need to see the video.
Well, do we see the
I'm
video
not going to
first?
have a video, but another thing, just like to note, there are 2 cases involved here.
Yes, there's 2 of them there.
Okay, the one that ends in 13 as well.
Right. So I go ahead and say that both of them are kind of
Right.
together. And then case number 18999-13, Douglas Dell Toff, variance request to the setback and fence requirements for said property on 1400 South Franklin Drive. So I guess we're not going to do
I'm not going to do a video, but I want to recap real quickly.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we know what we're doing here. Okay. These variances have to do with both a carport and a fence that are both encroaching in the front yard and actually, we believe, into the right-of-way as well as a setback issue for a accessory building that's toward the back of the property as well. Those were all covered by these 2 cases. At the August 16, 2018 board meeting, the applicant had the first case, 18999-12, heard. The case was for a variance for a carport located closer to the street than the principal structure. It was continued to September 20th meeting so the applicant can hire a surveyor to establish property lines. The encroachment issues for the carport are similar to the fence case. The applicant had set the carport just 11 feet off the pavement of East Jewel Court. However, that distance from the pavement appears to actually be an encroachment of about 2.5–3 feet into the right-of-way. At the September 20th, 2018 Board of Adjustment meeting, staff requested that both cases be continued to October meeting, and then again to November and now, of course, to December, requesting in the interim that the applicant hire a surveyor to establish the location of the property lines. The applicant has not supplied a survey as requested by the board, and therefore staff recommends that the case be denied.
Okay. That was one of the requirements of the first time, that we needed a survey, correct? Okay. So, you come up, Mr. Deltoff, you come up and speak before the board. Did you ever get the survey?
I'm trying to get close. I'm very sick right
Okay.
now. I'm not going to try to make
Okay.
any of you
Okay.
ill. I actually have a survey that was done in 1910. That's the only thing I was able to get a hold of. And they sent me, the title company sent me all of the easements that pertain to our property. And the only right-of-way on our property belongs to Kansas City Power and Light, and they only granted them 5 feet. The pole that is currently on our property is set 5 feet back. There's another pole past our property that appears to be too far back, but that's not on our property, and I can't really speak to that. The survey makes our property 125 feet in length by 100 feet. That is marked by the pre-existing fence line, which is still standing at the edge of our property, which is what the carport comes next to, but does not pass. The fence that we replaced was pre-existing. It was already there. The pole that is on our property is outside that fence line, 5 feet off the street, which is what the KCMPNL, which was established in 1960, says they only have 5 feet for right of access. No other easements were granted on our property, according to the title company.
But you still didn't get an updated survey, which we requested. That's not updated. That's not a survey, what you got there. You
Even though
have
it
boundary
says-
corners established and locations of all the improvements. We have to have something that shows us where the right-of-way line is. And to be honest with you, if you're over the right-of-way line with anything like that, we can't approve that. I don't care if it's 2 foot or 1 foot. It has to be inside your property line. It cannot be over in the street right-of-way. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
I understand, but I'm also saying what I see from the title company, they were only granted 5 feet for right-of-way.
5 feet of right-of-way.
5 feet for right-of-way for access for Kansas City Power and Light. To
Well, that's just an
establish power
easement,
poles.
but I'm talking about the street right-of-way, not the easement. Now,
This is what they're saying is the right-of-way.
we still don't have what we were asking for.
There's 2 issues here, sir. One of them is what you have from KCP&L is a utility easement,
Right.
which allows utilities to be placed within that easement. There is another item which is called the right-of-way, which is the width of the street that the city has full access to. And even in an older plat like that one, the city right-of-way should be established, correct, or not? It would be. So it would tell you, does your property line go into the center of the city right-of-way? Do you know, is there anything on that drawing that shows where the city right-of-way is?
It shows the original survey for all the plots and all the dimensions of those plots.
Does it show a lot across the street? Could you bring it up here so we can see it?
Do you have actually a copy of the plat? Okay. Evanston.
This is back when Winter was Evanston and
Let's see, which lot is he? I don't even. What lot do you own?
46.
Here's 46 right here.
Yeah, and I guess they're calling it Jewel Court. But they have, that's where he is right
And
Yeah, well, they
the
show
right
us.
of way, what is it, is that 50, that's a 50-foot right of way,
That's a 50-foot.
but we don't know where anything is
Wait a
in
minute.
relationship to that.
Here's north. So he's setting, this Jewel Court is, that's, I guess that's the street. I can't see, was it say 50 there? I can't hardly, it's so small. It looks like a
50-foot right of way.
right here, isn't it?
Mhm.
Well,
I believe those distances there.
these are supposed to be, see, he's got property line here, but
That's actually on the edge of pavement, basically, where he drew.
is this the edge of the pavement?
I added that on.
Well, the edge of pavement, I mean, I don't know where it is in relationship to the center of the right-of-way, but you have to go back
Don't they
from the
typically take
edge of
the
the, you're gonna have,
center point and go
well,
50
y-
feet?
well, they have to, a lot of times if it's in the center of the right-of-way, then you go 25 feet one way and 25 feet the other. But you're not gonna have, the road's only gonna be maybe
Right.
20 feet wide itself. Maybe, I don't know how wide it is. How wide is your street there as far as the, edge to edge?
2 lots. Are you talking about this way or?
The
this way?
width of the street that runs along the front of your
Jewel Court,
Jewel Court,
That I do not know.
huh?
I do not know. If you're talking about the width,
The width of the pavement.
oh, I do not know.
Did you measure to the edge of the pavement from your house? Is that where you came up with this?
Yes,
Okay. So,
so you made this drawing here
I did,
originally?
yes.
And then you added the right,
I added
okay,
where I believe the right of way is.
okay.
Okay. So the dotted line is what you're considering the right-of-way line, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and that's why, you know,
Right.
with that encroachment out there, we need clarification as
Well,
far as the
yeah.
survey.
We really need to know where the pavement is in relationship to the right-of-way line, or your property line, which is not gonna be the edge of the street. I mean, well, I suppose it could be, probably not. So, until you get a survey for us, we're kinda, in the dark here. I don't know how else to explain it to you.
Did you try to contact a surveyor or get a survey done?
I did, and the minimum charge was $1,500.
Yeah.
And in between my partner's student loan coming back to haunt him, 2 car repair bills at $1,500 apiece,
Okay, yeah.
and medical bills with his MS, it was not
You just couldn't
possible.
afford it, is what you're saying.
No,
Is this your property, you own it?
I
Or-
do,
Okay.
through Alpha Title, who provided me with what I have.
I don't, and you're, you say you've already started the carport, is it up, or is it? Did you all measure from the road, the edge of the road to the carport? What is it, I just don't know what we got in there, really. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I
relation-
did the measurements for the dash line, so, because I went out there with tape measure to do that.
but the dashed line, is that from the center of the road? Is that what you used, and you just went 25 feet, or how?
I actually went from that back fence line, which looked like it was well established.
That is the old fence line.
You mean, there's a fence in front, an old fence,
No, on the back, on the south,
on the south? Oh, there's a fence along here,
right.
and you
And
went up
that's a
there?
vacant lot there on the,
So you went up
on the west, and I just walked the vacant lot from that corner
Okay, so
along the
there's a,
side of his property toward the street.
so there's an apparent fence, old fence along the southerly
Mhm.
line. So you just went up 50 feet according to the plat, and that's how you come up with that dash line?
Yeah.
Okay.
So really, the question that we're addressing in the first place is that he's got that out in front of the primary building. I mean, if we reduce that to that, that was the original thing, that it was sitting out front of his primary house, which is marked here at 23 feet, and the carport's at 11,
And, I mean,
in
and,
that.
and even if you granted the variances, of course, he'd still have to move the carport. It probably couldn't be where it is. There's two issues, whether it's in the right-of-way and also that it's closer to the street than the house is, because you can't have it in the front yard anyway. And the same is true with the fence, because the fence is too tall for the front yard.
Is there a fence along the front of the house, of where the road is, or
Yes.
is there no privacy
Yeah,
fence or
yeah,
something?
it should be only be 3 feet tall, and it's a chain link, but it's privacy height that's, 6 feet tall, I believe.
Is it one that was already there, or did you put that fence in?
The
Oh,
previous fence that we replaced was 4 foot, and it was so encroached with shrubs and stuff, you really couldn't see it. So I don't know if that was visible to most people. We had that ripped out and simply replaced with new fence.
with a 5-foot or 6-foot fence?
If
And that
we-
had gates at some point, but those gates fell into disrepair, and the previous owner just got rid of them.
But we still don't know where
If we assume that Jewel Court is 28 feet wide, which is,
well, it's possible, but it may only be 22 to 24 foot wide.
But isn't the question really the fact that the carport's out in front of the
Right.
previous building? Does the drive continue all the way through to where your carport is, or does it stop at that point?
The carport is the exact size of the driveway. Pretty much it does not continue past.
So the
it's a-
driveway
it's a
doesn't,
blacktop driveway
right,
that
so
they
it
lay down
doesn't go on
themselves.
past that
No.
farther back, so
Past that, there's brick
if you
and
were to move
bushes.
that back to the position of the 22 feet, you'd be off of your blacktop.
Yes, and on top of that, we discovered there was a conduit running through the yard that the owners put for their security light outside. We discovered that when we moved a bird bath and found a electrical box sticking out of the yard. So
Do
we're
you
not sure
have
about-
any other underground utilities in there that may be along there that you haven't located?
Well, this was their own doing.
Okay.
They installed their own light and they ran their
Okay.
own line underneath
Okay.
the yard.
All right. But as far as you know, there's no other gas or any other water or anything like that? You don't have?
Those were actually marked by the utility company when the water company came in, and those were all in the side yard outside our fence.
What kind of a carport is it? I mean, I wasn't part of any of that, so I'm unaware of it.
I can show you a picture of it.
That would be
Is it
good.
like frame, or is it metal, or?
It's a frame and it is metal. It's open.
So it's one of the freestanding type units, it's not fixed to the ground and that kind of thing?
It's anchored, but it's not permanent.
Okay. So that seems pretty simple.
while he's looking it up, if we're gonna make assumptions, which is all we can do at this time, if it were 28 feet, half of that's 14, to be half, and if the right-of-way's in the center, I mean, if the center line of the
Yeah.
street's in the center of the right-of-way, then 11 feet would be right on the right-of-way line. If the street is less than 24 feet, or if the center of the right-of-way is offset, it could be actually, because he's measured 23 feet, or, 11 feet to the street, then it could be over the right-of-way line. So we just don't know.
No, we don't know
And-
until it's surveyed,
But
actually, do we?
isn't the real question the fact that if you're gonna put a carport in, that it's no closer to the street than the primary building?
Right,
which is-
that would be a
I mean, that's
something that we
first-
could handle it as a variance.
right.
But I don't know that we have the right, I don't believe we have the right to vary, to grant a variance to encroach into city right-of-way.
No, I don't
Well,
think so, we
what is
don't.
Brian or Stuart, do you guys know at all the width of Jewel to give us anywhere close to the
No, it's
thing on that?
Yeah,
But we were in the surveying business, my father and I, and it's been a family-owned business, and you can't always assume that the pavement is in the center of the right-of-way. It could be,
Right.
clear over to the edge, it could be in the center, it could be on the other side.
And
So
particularly,
you don't really know until you actually establish those lines, and that's one of the things we're looking at here. We don't really have enough information to make, do we, Roy?
Well,
I don't, I was gonna suggest that maybe we, rather than deny it, because, we're trying to be kind in the season.
Yeah,
that
we're
we
not
give
trying to-
Another variance, another extension.
so it is just
Oh, it's one of those metal, yeah.
so that, in theory, just
Yeah, they have those are pretty common.
Can I see?
that could be shifted back,
Yeah, it's
given the
not.
point, give some assumptions there.
Does it have
and
Well,
concrete footings?
does it have
You-
concrete
you just
footings,
have
or is
that
it just,
around, right?
It's got anchored moorings.
But it's not concrete?
No, it's not.
Okay, so that could be moved back. So if we granted a variance to be on the right-of-way line, then it could be moved back.
Yes, we can.
But we would still need to know where that,
Right-of-way line is.
at least at that point, now maybe we can find a surveyor that would locate the center of the right-of-way, so he'd know that.
I'm telling you, I know surveying costs have, since we sold the business 10
If the
years ago.
question-
But it's,
I know we're
it's-
kind of in the
yeah,
discussion.
we're kind of
but
discussion.
If the question is whether there's an assumed right of way, because if the street is here, they're not really gonna go to say that let's say it's 50 feet out of the way, the street's so far out. The reality is, that's where it is, that's where they make their easements, that's where they put things in, wherever that street is at that point. My question would be, okay, he didn't have the survey, can't afford the survey, clearly. That's what you're telling us, you cannot afford the survey that we're asking for.
I mean,
So, but if he would move this back to assume point that if the street was there, and it is, whatever the case is, that he pushes that back 2 feet, that gives him some, but we're still having to give him some latitude to say that it's in front of the house.
Well, and you can't move it back because you have the brick, what do you call it, like a patio that's,
The brick can be uprooted, it's the shrub that would be a pain. Not that I
And if
can't
you'd
remove
had- if
those.
you
Shrubs
moved
you
it-
could take care of with a
Chainsaw.
chainsaw.
but
which I'd
what
have to
you're
borrow,
saying
but
is to move
that's-
it back,
that's
you'd
not a
have to
big deal.
you'd have to cut the shrubs down, is that what you're saying?
Yes. They're not very big, which is good, but
Well, I mean, to me, let me ask Brian, Stuart, is this, if they moved it back where it was not in front of the existing house, they wouldn't have to worry about a survey particularly, would he?
right, I mean, what we were talking about here, you're struggling with you not having a known
I
point.
know, we don't have the information.
So if you want, you could possibly base it upon a line parallel with the building line of the house and say not more than 5 feet in front of a line parallel with the house.
Right.
And based upon a known point rather than an unknown point.
Right.
So in other
That's
words,
kinda what I was
you're
saying.
saying going 5 feet parallel to the front of the house, the foundation, and then have it where he could go out 5 foot towards the street, is that what you're saying? And that would,
Yeah,
but it still would be back further than it is now.
Well, that would
Right.
be quite a bit, because this house is at
I suppose that might work, I mean, it won't be, probably it's not gonna be on the right of way.
But we may need a caveat that if it's determined in the future that that is still within the right-of-way, that,
but it is sort of a temporary movable.
Yeah, it's
building.
not, it's not
even
like
fixed structure.
it isn't where they put footings in and
I
put part of it.
think that Brian has, if we establish this fence along the south property line is the south property line, and if he uses a tape measure to measure out 50 feet, I mean,
Right.
we're working from a known point.
Right.
Okay.
That's better than working from wherever the pavement
street
is in the
is,
right of
yeah,
way. That could
right.
be who knows where.
Because we don't know exactly where that right of way line is.
So, I mean, Brian could go out and put a stake where we believe the north property line is and
Or
then go from
close.
there. Not a survey stake, but, something that we would have,
And then he'd have to be behind it a little bit.
a certain
Maybe
distance.
a couple feet or something, and that's kind of stretching it, but I guess we
Yeah.
can do that.
That
I mean,
would-
we're not trying to
I
make it
understand.
hard for you, I mean,
understand.
1,500 is a lot of money.
and we did grant some extensions for
Yeah,
you,
we-
even though you weren't here last time.
But, because we don't like to work with, we don't try to be hard-nosed about it, we're trying to help you out. But also, is that something that you all could, if you measured up and say went 2 or 3 feet, or at least 2 feet behind that 50-foot line that you're gonna use the fences or as a line, I suppose, I mean, even though it may not be exactly right, but it'd be close enough, I don't know.
What if we made a motion to grant, number one, a variance for the shed to be no more than 5 feet north of the line of the existing house, that we would assume the variance would be from, we don't know what the variance would be at that point. And then we would the fence that was replaced, there were no complaints or calls from any neighbors on this.
Has there been anybody
Right.
called the city on it, or?
I guess that's the question.
Well, there have been, I'm not well versed in what the court cases are, but there have been some cases that have been before and they may have been more to do with weeds, but I think the shed actually it was involved in is a continued court case right now as we speak, because it was constructed without a permit.
Oh, this shed,
It's a frame, is it a frame shed, the 8x12 shed?
Oh, no.
Or not the shed, I mean the carport was constructed, they were all constructed without permits. And
Oh, the shed doesn't require one. It's small.
yeah, the shed didn't require one, but let me
Oh, man, this thing's really.
Well, I'm not to
lost
interrupt,
my
but
train of
looks to me like this is strictly a temporary structure. It's not fixed, could be moved, could be shifted. You know, this year it's right here, and then next time I want to park my car over on the other side. You just move that whole structure. It's not other than the anchors.
And those come out.
I mean, do those require the kind of things, setback that we're even struggling with here at all? Because to me, it seems like it's a non-permanent structure at all. I mean, what he showed us was a freestanding,
Yeah, the carport requires a permit, and the reason for the first variance request
That's on the carport.
was prompted by codes enforcement action against him, and he made application subsequent to them writing him a ticket, so the court case went ahead, even though in other words, he didn't get to you fast enough to freeze their enforcement action. So enforcement has been going on parallel at the same time that you are.
so they're almost waiting on to us to see what's going on for them to
I don't-
decide what happens.
I just know that court case is continuing to be continued.
Okay.
Actually, it's over.
a permit is not
It's over.
required for the
Okay.
shed because it's under 120 square feet. But a permit is required for the
Carport.
carport because it is over 120 square.
Right, that's the other issues, the fence and the shed have zoning setback requirements, but are not connected with a permit requirement.
Now, this first part, the dash 13, 18, 99912, is that the one with the carport? I mean, that's
Yeah,
it.
well,
The
it's-
first one is the carport, and the other one is the
Shed in
the shed in the back.
Is the
there.
shed and the fence.
So the first here, the 12 is what we call the carport,
Yes,
and the other one is the shed, the 8x12 shed, right?
and the fence.
And the fence.
Well, isn't what we're talking about really whether or not the existing fencing and that this is close? And if that's, well, you're saying it's too close because if I'm reading this correctly, that it's actually according to just the fencing. We don't know the actual, but it's 2.5 feet to 3 feet off the fence row, and by code, what's the closest he could have that there? I'm trying, does that actually say on here?
Was that an old wire fence that was just kind of been there for years,
Yes,
and you all just put it back
exactly where it was
basically right
standing.
where it was before?
But-
The original holes are actually still there, right underneath our fence.
Okay, so you just followed the old fence, which even if it wasn't right, particularly, it might have been, it'd been there so long, it was,
But
they
that's,
call
they're
it,
saying it's taller.
right.
Right.
It's too tall, is that what they're saying?
Yes.
Here's, I may be out of turn here, but
Well, go ahead.
what I'm
Yeah.
thinking, okay, I know that the codes enforcement people go,
Oh,
that looks too close, or whatever the case may be.
May I interject here something? perhaps if you would want to continue it to January, Brian and I can go out and do a little bit more detailed drawing of this with more information than what's been provided.
I think.
And from that, you can make a better decision.
Yeah.
So we'll call the land surveyors, Brian and Stuart, land surveyors, right? I'm just-
Our rates are much more reasonable.
Reasonable, yes, yes. Well, we can understand that 15, I mean, prices of everything just gone up so much anymore.
And that was the cheap one.
So it's, I mean, we can, rather than make a final decision tonight, we can try to, because we've been trying to work with you.
I understand, and I've been chasing down this stuff for 3 months before
Yeah.
the title company finally gave it to me.
Yeah, so you have a title insurance policy, I take it?
I do.
Okay.
Here's your drawing.
Here's your plat, you want to take that, and, yeah, the
You
thing
might
was,
make copies of that or get them, well, if they can give them to Brian and they can,
yeah, those are a record, you can go up to the recorder's office, I guess, and get them, but.
well, then why don't we make a motion to continue this till
Continue it again?
I would make a motion that we continue
Okay.
this.
Till
these
next,
two cases, case number,
there it is.
1899912 and 1899913.
18, this is it, 99912 is the,
999-12
and then 99
999-13 until our next regularly scheduled meeting, which should be the third Thursday of January. January 17th, 2019.
Right. I mean, seriously, I think maybe
understand.
that would be your best bet. We could get a little bit more information, because we're trying to
I understand.
work it out for you to,
And the only thing we have that's, if we're paying to move is the fence. Everything else is movable with the right equipment, so. If we have to move it, we have to move it. It's not an
okay,
issue.
well, it's not like you've got a frame with footings and poured
Yeah.
concrete. They were not talking about that.
And you want to be sure that you or somebody comes on to represent.
Yeah, be sure that you're here, or someone that represents you's here, because we have to have you here in order to.
Yes.
Well, do we need to second their motion? Because I'll
Well, I
second
think,
it.
well, yeah, you went ahead and made the motion.
I will second.
He's-
You can
Dan,
second. I don't care who
doesn't
seconded
matter.
it.
You can, so we made a motion to, move,
Vote on that.
I guess I'll go ahead and just repeat it. Case number 18-999-12, 1400 South Franklin Drive, and also case number 18999-13, same address, to next month's meeting on the 17th of January of 19. And
Doesn't seem possible to
2019.
be next year, but here we are.
you what?
Doesn't seem possible to be next year, but here we are.
Yeah, I know it. It's unbelievable. Well, we just appreciate you coming out here.
Do we have to? put
We
it
work
in?
with people. We're not, But we-
Mr. Chairman, could we have the vote on this motion?
yeah, we'll go ahead and vote on it. So, I had a motion, second, now we vote. I've already made the date and everything. Okay, we've got Roy Brown,
Yes.
Jack Lehman,
Yes.
John Davies,
Yes.
Dan Sunderland,
Yes.
and Robert Jones, yes. So those two cases, Douglas Del Toff, is that how you pronounce that?
It's DeHoff, DEHOFF.
There's no L in there.
And it's two, my
It's
handwriting is-
misspelled,
It's
the-
two H.
Oh,
My
it's-
H doesn't always connect.
Oh, okay. So it's D-E,
HOFF.
Yeah, yours
oh,
is wrong here. Mine's right on.
okay. Well, we appreciate you coming out, and hopefully we can make a decision next month where we can we got a little more information.
And hopefully I'm not losing my voice that.
Okay, well, thank you for coming out. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Get well.
Get well. Merry Christmas to you.
Next.
Oh, that's hard. He didn't feel well. Well, I think we did the right thing. All right, so we've got that. That's continued till the January 17th of 2019, right? Next meeting, okay. All right, now we're ready for the next one. All right, that takes care of those.
18-99923.
All right, so, where's my, All right, here we go. It's case number 18-999, next on the docket. Dash 2551 East Trinity Place. The applicant owner is Cedarhurst of Blue Springs Real Estate. And so, do we watch the video now? Is that correct?
Okay. I think this video is kind of dark, actually.
Okay.
I had some, I don't know why it's so, not dark, it's
Yeah, here we go.
actually
The dark side. You're
it's shaky, blurry for some reason.
okay. That's the new facility. I mean, a big one, isn't it?
Okay, let's start this over here real quick.
All right.
Were you nervous or what?
I don't know what this, it's cold and windy out
Very
there. Remember
shaky.
that.
It
Okay,
is
this is
cold,
the,
yeah.
this is the existing sign that was built, about, 8 months ago, perhaps, something like
Okay,
that.
okay,
It was, constructed generally as approved by the board before.
okay.
2 panels underneath, on 2 pylons, signs. As you can see from, this, the, building is nearing completion.
Mm-hmm.
And we wind around to this kind of building's out, sort of out there on its own right now. We wind around to the rest of Trinity,
Mm-hmm.
and, what is it, really shaky? And here we go, we should see the, Children's Mercy Hospital here.
Okay.
And then further off in the distance are the restaurants,
Mhm.
and also the Blue Ridge Bank we're gonna go by
Okay.
there. That's another hotel. And here we see we're on the south side of I-70, and you can see
Mhm.
the traffic here, and then and there's the sign for the Menards across the street there,
Mhm.
across the highway. And another that shows the height of the sign in relationship to
Right.
the,
Yeah.
relationship to the building.
So it needs to, it doesn't, when they come down the I-70, it's down in that draw, or,
Somewhat,
Pole,
yeah.
and it needs to be a little higher so they can actually see it. Is that what we're saying? here?
Yeah, I'm gonna turn this off here and go with the next one, which is,
What
a
is-
little better, clearer and a little closer.
Okay. Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah, that's, again, this is I-70, we're down at the bottom of the hill. We're looking at I-70, that's the eastbound lanes.
Mm-hmm.
And we wind around to the sign there.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of see what the height of the highway is in relationship to the sign.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they seek to put another, basically another box sign above the, where it's Cedarhurst says now, and the proposed sign will also say Cedarhurst, but it'd be in a slightly different color and size and shape than that
According
one.
to the drawing here.
And here we go through the parking lot to see the construction crews working on the project. And then around to the sign again.
So this was built about 6 or 7 months ago, you say the sign?
I think they pulled the permit in January or December. So I can't say when it was completed, but probably, you know, early summer or something like that it was done.
Okay. All right. Well, I think
And
that's-
again, this is a request by Cedarhurst to increase the height of the sign from 36.33 feet to 45.33 feet, and also increase the maximum area of the sign from about 93 feet or 94 feet to about 194 feet.
Yeah, so that's the height and the size of the one they're gonna put on top of the
Yeah, the height of
existing.
the size, and then the area of the new sign that they're seeking to add to that.
Okay.
And the applicant is here to answer any questions.
Okay, so I guess that's all we need to see right now, right? I
So
guess you
the
turn,
total sign area, the sign above and existing, or what's below, that's the total that you're giving.
what they have there now is about 94 feet, and they want to add another 100 onto the top of it, which would be 194 feet.
Okay. So they're still gonna have the option of having it sign below, so that.
Well, if the board wants to grant another variance,
Well, that's true.
We're just talking about the one on top, right?
yeah.
Okay. And you're saying that, or the 100 is supposed to be 10 by 10, is that what you're saying, 100 square foot? And they want a little bit more than that, right, about 31 square feet?
Yeah, actually.
Because it's 9 by
I-
14.6.
Let me correct those numbers. The sign area that's out there now is about 63 square feet, and they're wanting to add 131. So that's somewhere along the line. It must have,
Do we have somebody here to speak?
yeah.
Okay. All right, so,
94 square feet.
So they were under before, so they have that area to make up to 100, and then anything over 100 is what they need the variance for. So they had 63, so they can have a 37
okay.
free, but then that leaves them with whatever 131 is minus 37, which I believe is
94?
93.88.
Okay. All right, so do we have someone here that's representing the ownership of the, of this case number 18-999-23? Okay, do you want to give us your name and?
Sure.
And
Good evening.
address?
Yep. Jordan Dorsey, 7656 Bordeaux in Edwardsville, Illinois. Developer on the project.
Okay,
So it kind of pains me to stand up here and talk about ripping down part of a sign that we just constructed, but as you can see from Mr. Borders' video, the sign as you're eastbound on 70 really appears to be about just the height of the elevation of 70. So we're down in sort of a hole, and unfortunately we just didn't get it right on the first try. And so the sign is really, as much as we have invested in already, is really virtually obsolete or ineffective. So as Mr. Borders mentioned, what we're asking the board's permission to do is add an additional panel on top of the existing structure. So we'll be doing some additional reinforcement, and then we'll add an additional metal panel to the top. It'll be backlit LED that will be the main panel for the sign, which will advertise for the new assisted living and memory care facility.
okay. Well, I could see what you mean about being down in a hole there now, because you don't really, it's almost level, you say, with the pavement at the top of it.
Yep, yep,
So you're gonna need more height. I see that.
yep.
I take it you didn't do any elevation drawings with this by comparison in the first go-round, or?
So one of our project managers actually did some 3D modeling, but it didn't work. So yeah, we constructed the sign about 6 months ago, late summer. And then, not only the height of the sign, but partially due to the design. You have the stone pylons on the sides, and it kind of crunches the text of the sign panels themselves. And so the text on the sign is really not visible from 70 either.
I know I've tried to figure out what it was down there for quite some time.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
I-
Figure out what in the world.
Yeah.
That was part of the old Tri-City property, wasn't it,
way
one
back.
time?
Way back then, we
The
did
church
balls
was-
there.
yeah.
You know, that's something
Okay.
altogether different.
Okay, well,
Do we have anybody that called against it by any chance, or any of that kind of
Yeah.
thing?
have you had?
Actually received no calls on this one.
No calls.
Okay. So, what do you think, guys? I mean,
So
Personally,
you've had your engineer make sure that the extra wind load isn't gonna cause problems with the previous footings, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. Our structural engineer has redesigned the sign. So we'll actually be removing a lot of the stone that you see on the existing sign, reinforcing the structure, and then adding the panel on top.
okay.
I don't know.
I mean,
I'm
I
gonna-
could see the point. I mean,
I'm gonna say we go ahead, there's business trying to do something down in a hole, and I had a hard time, I know
Yeah.
personal experience that we would go ahead and
I
approve
guess
this
I
and
haven't really either myself.
make a motion to do so.
Okay, do we have any, nobody's here against this,
Said he got no call.
and so thank you for coming.
Appreciate it, thank you.
And since we don't have anybody here opposing, can we go ahead and close it, can't we?
Yep.
Close
Yeah.
the, well, so we'll go ahead and close the,
I would like to mention, the staff's recommendation or comment is on
Okay.
that would be reduced to a maximum of 100 square feet instead of the 131 additional square feet sought by the applicant.
you mean you want it less than 131?
Yeah, and it
And-
says, staff has no objection to the additional requested height. Staff cannot support the amount of additional square footage as proposed, but believe the proposed amount of sign area should be reduced to a maximum of 100 square feet in lieu of the sought 131 square feet.
That would make the difference exactly what on that? From their, right now, they're looking for a 9 by 14.6, so that would pull it down to,
You could
by
say 8 by
12.
12, something like that, I don't know,
About
somewhere
7
along the
feet
lines.
high, 7 feet by 14.
I guess we should ask if that would be acceptable.
Would that be
if there
acceptable
would be a problem
for you
without
all?
changes anything else on that?
That's-
Um,
But if you
Or
look
is
at
it-
your logo and everything, it might even work better, it might look better proportionally too.
yeah, I actually, I went ahead and had our architect do an additional rendering that gets us to 98 square feet. I think what the architect was trying to do was try to balance the sign with the stone base. And I think in my opinion, the 131 square feet, it really doesn't increase our text much. It's really just the open area above and below the text here on the sign. So I think by sizing it the way he did, he was trying to balance the bottom of the
You kept the
stone.
same width and just lowered it?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
that's-
So the panel on top is proportionate in width to the stone base.
well, that makes
Better
sense.
proportionally anyway.
Okay. So in
So
other
our-
words, because of the width, you wanted to make it look better that way rather than have it not quite as wide. Is that what you're telling me?
There's a lot of space above, the
Yeah.
letter and below. It's-
So I don't know where it'd really make that much difference, would it?
No, I think it's
Um,
fine.
Our preference would be
To
to
keep it that
continue with
way.
the 130 square feet, but
Okay,
of course,
okay,
the board's
okay,
decision.
all right. Well, do we have a motion to approve case number 18-999-23, 2551 East Trinity Place, Independence, Missouri, of an application for variances to the pylon sign standards for the property at the same address, and applicant owner is Cedar Hurst of Blue Springs Real Estate, LLC.
Are we,
So-
I mean, they kind of brought that in. I was gonna just
Are you
motion
gonna-
that
you
we
want-
would approve it as is.
I was-
But, maybe we should discuss that a little bit. I don't see that there's a problem with pulling it down and,
I don't see where
or
31
what do you
feet.
think? I'm not thinking it that much difference in the whole reality of what they're trying to do here is bring business in, and if they wanna be visible,
Well,
we're talking about
we're looking at-
them not adding
we're looking at
anymore.
Precedent here too, and in this case, they've created their graphics and they just have a lot of space above it.
Space above it, right.
The architect is already willing to drop it down. I think it might, personally, as an architect, I think the proportion looks better to have it a little bit lower anyway, but that's just my personal.
Okay.
So you think it shouldn't be,
that the-
it should be 100 rather than 131, is that what you're
I
saying?
think that,
Yeah.
I would agree with staff on that, because we don't know what might happen in the future with another sign that, well, you gave these guys,
Right.
and
Well, that's why I was saying, if we are gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve it based on the reduced or 100 square foot, I would go ahead and do that.
that's.
Okay.
You're gonna make that.
Yeah, I'll make that motion that we
Follow
would
what the city's,
approve case number 18-999-23 based on the lower square footage, as your architect has re-rendered to 100 square feet. Is that correct?
Remember, there was two parts to this, the height and the sign area. So staff thought that the sign height wasn't an issue, but just the sign area could get
Right.
smaller.
In other words,
So if they decided to keep the height, they could just reduce the size of the sign otherwise.
they could raise the pylons and keep the height the same, which.
And I think that's what I'm saying that we
Okay,
should
so-
do. Keep the height, get maximum and
So
limit the
height
size.
okay, it's just size smaller.
Yeah,
So it won't be as, this way, height
right.
is gonna
It
stay
just
the
won't
same.
have as much.
It's
Could you
gonna
bring your architect's rendering up so we could just make sure that we're all seeing that? But I think that that's what I was
In
seeing,
other
it's
words, this
just
is gonna be
shorter.
not quite this far
It's
out.
not 9 feet
It's just
tall.
gonna be to match that
It'd be this width, I think. and
cultured
not
stone
this
now
tall.
either.
So this
Yeah.
is the original drawing.
Right, we've got that.
131 square feet.
Okay,
Here's the revised drawing
So
showing.
it's just a little shorter. Okay, so we've got 14.6 still, and it's only 6.
But is the height the same, or did you actually lower the height of the sign?
We lowered the sign because we kept the width to match the stone base below.
okay.
But I
So in
mean,
other
you're
words, that's gonna work for you guys okay this way, for the most part, you think?
Yeah.
So it's not gonna hurt you to have a little, not quite the height. Well, you can still, they could still be, the graphics can still work there.
The text of the sign stays the same size.
Okay, okay.
So you're not going to go all the way up to 45 feet?
I'm giving
My
that
underst-
option.
Well, it's,
I was gonna say that that option could be there.
About 2 feet shorter.
Yeah,
We could, in the motion, leave the height as it is, you're just
yeah.
approving.
That would be my thing.
variance
We leave the
with
height,
But, 100 square feet on the sign.
motion it that way.
Okay, so you have the maximum height as requested, but the square footage is limited to 100.
Yes.
in
Okay.
other words, the
That's
9
what I'm-
foot's gonna, 9 foot's gonna stay, you're just gonna narrow this a little bit.
No, just, however they want to design the sign, we just give them the same height.
Yeah,
And if they want to change it, they want to put a half circle on top, whatever, it's up to them. They just have to have the 100 square feet we're gonna give them.
Okay.
down to the 6.6 instead of the 9 feet sign up top.
Yeah, we're not dealing with those, that's up to them, we're just giving them the height and the area of the sign.
Okay, sounds good to me.
So I motion.
Okay. So do we have a motion to,
Did you second that?
with the,
Mr. Davies?
John seconded over.
I'm seconding it.
well, do we have the wording the way we want? Just go ahead, I mean,
I think what Stuart came up with is a good wording
we'll
on
just
that.
go with what the city,
He's
Yes, staff recommend.
borderizing it.
Okay.
so with revisions, is that what we're calling it?
Yeah, I have it written down as the height is all right, but the maximum sign area is 100 square feet.
Okay, so, with, I'll just say it again here. Case number 18999-23-2551 East Trinity Place, owner Cedarhurst Blue Springs Real Estate, with the revisions, adjustments, or whatever you want to call it, by the city. We will prove the height will stay the same, correct?
Yes.
And do I have a motion for that?
Yes.
Yeah, he's made a motion for everything,
Okay,
and Mr. Davies has seconded.
okay,
So we're
so,
ready to vote.
okay, sounds good to me. All right, so, get the, where's the doggone thing here? Where's my, okay, here we go. Okay, roll call here. Roy Brown,
Yes.
Jack Lehman,
Yes.
John Davies,
Yes.
Dan Sunderland,
Yes.
and Robert Jones, yes. So, case number 18-999-23, Cedarhurst of Blue Springs Real Estate, a variance request to the freestanding sign standards for the property at said address has been approved unanimously. Thank you for coming, we appreciate it. So, it approved.
Okay.
And last on the list.
But definitely not the least.
Okay, next on the next on the agenda is case number 18-999-24, Mark Williamson, a variance request to the accessory building standards for the property at 22008 East Pink Hill Road. So do we have a video of this?
Okay, this is on Pink Hill Road, and we're looking east down Pink Hill Road. That's back toward Artie Mize up on the hill. And that's back down toward the Independence Center, that direction. And we're looking back north at basically his driveway, the applicant's driveway, that's existing gravel driveway that's roughly just west of the house. So let's see if I move the camera a little bit more. There we go.
There's the house.
There's the house. So in October, the applicant submitted a permit to construct a 558 square foot accessory building on the northwest portion of his property, just over a dozen feet from the bend in his existing driveway. With the garage door and paved driveway segment oriented toward the existing driveway and Pink Hill Road, the building was deeper than wide, 18 feet by 21 feet. The proposed garage would encroach 27 feet into the 35-foot interior side yard setback. A variance of 27 feet would be needed for an 8-foot setback. See, the track is a legal non-conforming acre-and-a-half RA zoned property. So it's actually zoned agriculture. Yeah, that's only an acre-and-a-half. Whereas conforming lots in that zoning usually have more than 3 acres because we require 3 acres for an RA lot. Lots with lesser zone in the area and around the city that would be that size would normally be allowed to have a 5-foot side yard. And so that's why he's approaching us for this variance on the side yard setback for this accessory structure.
I'm still trying to get oriented. Is this just a little bit west of Artie Mize Road?
It's about 2 blocks west of Artie Mize Road. The Cardinal Woods West subdivision
Okay, so
borders the north side of the property.
that's
Cardinal
that
West.
curve right there. That's where
Is that what they call it?
you
Pump
Okay.
hubcaps off
Okay.
on that one.
I'll take your
That
word.
road's like a snake anyway in there, yeah. So, hubcap,
Somebody
curve, I like that one.
speak on that?
That curve.
Yeah,
Lots of hubcaps in there.
I bet there was. So, the issue is the 18 by 31 feet is too close to then it's supposed to be back 35 minimum, is that what you're saying?
Right, the-
According to the,
Accessory building should be 35 feet away from a side property line,
okay,
and it's only,
8.
he wants to do 8 feet. In most zoning districts, only 5 would be required.
Okay, but for this particular one, it's 35 feet.
Right.
And it's a little different lot.
So he's trying to, instead of 35, he wants 8, which would make a 27-foot variance, is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that the only thing that's a issue here?
That's the only issue.
Okay. Because I noticed on the, your staff comments, the practical difficulties, number 3, where it says required strict compliance with the subject zoning and regulation will constitute a practical difficulty. For the subject property owner, no, the proposed garage could be constructed further to the east. So,
Do we have somebody here speaking?
do we have someone here to speak and on behalf of the applicant or the owner? Just give us your name and address, please.
Mark Williamson. And it's
Okay.
2208 Northwest Pink Hill Road. I'm the owner.
Okay. And I guess give us a little bit of what's going on in there, what you're trying to do and so forth.
Yeah. So basically, I had a 30 by 50 shop put up. It had finished up, I believe, the end of, it was mid this year. The permit went through and got finalized. And when I put that shop up, I went off of the residential setback guidelines. So then I applied for a permit to put an 18 by, I guess the actual footprint is a 17 by 30 up. And then I went ahead and poured a pad of concrete, assuming that I'd be under the same setback ruling. And then and then they came back and said that I was zoned as RA, and then I had a 35-foot setback, which, I mean, that puts it pretty much in the middle of my property, in the middle of everything if I go off the back property line and the side property line. So
But you already poured concrete there.
I did, yeah,
Did you get a permit before you did all that? I mean,
correct. I
And
had a
they,
permit already.
and they gave you a permit to do it? I mean, as far as the slab?
Well, I
or-
applied for the permit, and then it was getting cold, so I went ahead and poured, because I didn't think there was gonna be any issue. I had turned in the draft and everything, all the plans for the building and everything, so at this point, it either becomes an expensive parking pad, or the building gets erected, so.
I've got a
That's what we're at.
question. Do we have anybody or have gotten calls or on this?
I didn't receive a call.
Is anybody in the auditorium here on the negative about this or something? Yes. Okay.
Okay,
I was just
So,
trying to find out who we were gonna.
yeah, so you've actually got the slab for this particular construction of this building, or I guess you call it accessory building, is that what the city calls it?
Yeah,
Is it gonna be like a garage or something, or is it just a?
yes, it's fully enclosed, has a 10-by-10 garage door and then one walk door, so it's basically all enclosed, and then it'll match the existing building already, and then it'll match the house as well.
Okay. But everything's, you got paved, and then you also got the slab in there already, is that?
The
what
slab
was-
is installed, yes.
Okay. Well,
We have. As far as, I don't have any questions for him.
I don't,
yet, just these negative or
Well, I
whoever's.
wanna make sure I understand where the slab is. We have a picture here, an
Yeah.
aerial, and it shows the existing house.
Mhm.
Can you, could you come up here and mark on here where that slab is approximately, so we understand it? Okay.
it says, or shows on here, it's
65.
65 feet from your, I guess that'd be your northerly line,
I think that's,
or is that 65 feet, and then it's 8 feet from the right-of-way, is that correct? Or from the
no,
property line, not the right-of-way. The right-of-way's to the south.
The
Okay.
confusion is that, this is the shape of the lot. and
Yeah, it's an irregular shape, that's true.
So he's showing it there.
Oh, okay.
You guys
Right.
see that?
Oh,
which
okay.
is, right, so if he uses this as a square and we ignore this Pink Hill Road, that's,
So this configuration here is not the way the actual
Well,
configuration
it
of the
is.
tract.
on here, and ignore this front.
Oh,
So
okay. I see.
This we can
In other words,
use
this
we
and
can
this
use
is say,
this.
okay.
Yeah,
This goes down like
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Okay.
okay, so unless we have more questions for him for now, how do we hear from all the people that are here?
Okay.
Gotta speak or-
I guess so. I guess we don't have any other questions at this time,
Okay.
so thank you for sharing with us. Do we have anyone in the audience that's against this application? And I guess please come to the podium and give us your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Terry Gulick, and I'm at 22105 East 34th Street, Court South, and I'm the representative for the Cardinal Woods West HOA. Our subdivision borders Mr. Williamson's property to the north. And while Mr. Williamson stated in his application that he would like to add a building to increase the value of his property, it's the opinion of the Cardinal Woods West HOA that the addition of another building would decrease the value to our homes. We feel the building he completed earlier in the year has decreased the value of the 3 homes in which it have a direct view of the current building and has indirectly affected the entire neighborhood's value. Our hope was that when Mr. Williamson completed the first building, that he would utilize the new building to store his various pieces of equipment and stuff that was lying around on the property. This was not the case, and in July, our HOA filed a complaint with the city for the condition of the property. to include both the physical equipment and the condition of the bushes, weeds, and open burning. 6 months later, we still are seeing the same problems, and I have pictures I would like to provide.
Okay.
And in one of those pictures, you'll see the slab is already poured.
Okay.
Please note on the first page is the city's response in July from John Mayfield. Mr. Mayfield stated that Mr. Williamson is allowed farm equipment but not construction equipment. In the pictures that I provided, you will see a backhoe and a bobcat, both construction equipment, not farm equipment. We understand Mr. Williamson is going to say he needs the second building to store this equipment, but we argue that it should not be on the property to begin with. Our fear is Mr. Williamson is setting up a home business, which we do not believe he is zoned for, and we also oppose. There have been numerous nights that the noise, a banging and music from the first building that has been noted after midnight. He has one wrecked car sitting on the property already, and we oppose more coming in. There was also a salt truck that sat there for a couple of weeks, and various other vehicles and equipment have come and gone. The Cardinal Woods West HOA does not wish to be at odds with our neighbor, but we also wish to protect our property values and preserve the peaceful neighborhood we chose to move into. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for coming.
Now, you said you were speaking, are you speaking for all of the people here back here? Is this all part of
They
your
would
HOA?
also like an opportunity, some of them, to speak directly, but I do represent the HOA.
Okay.
Okay.
So did you have any direct conversations with the homeowner to see if you could rectify the situation? Did you talk to him about it directly?
We've spoke. When they first moved in, we talked about the dead bushes and stuff, but
But have
He
you
said they
spoken
weren't
to them
his.
about this before you filed a complaint? Did you
I
talk to
believe
them?
several people have.
Nobody has.
Okay.
Nobody's addressed me. I talked to Jack, which he's not here, and he's had no issues.
We can't really hear you if you don't
Yeah.
come up to the microphone.
You'll need to, everyone needs to speak into the microphone there.
We're all about neighborliness here. I mean, all of us are Independence residents, and we want to make sure that your needs are met and his needs are met, and that we're in harmony and all,
Okay.
all that good stuff. So, that's my
We
question.
do too, but we want to protect our property.
You want to get right, I understand, but I was just curious whether you spoke to him, if there had been any communication, maybe some of these things he could have solved and, explained why he had the Bobcat there for a while, or, I mean, I didn't know if any of that had happened.
It's not a while, it's been there constantly. And the city told him he couldn't. We don't feel like we should have to police it.
No,
That's not,
I'm not
I think,
gonna jump-
think that's clear,
I just was asking a question, I was just
Okay.
curious.
Right.
so, yeah.
Anybody else?
Not for her, but we've got a few others that wanted to speak, and we have to go
Okay.
through them. Next person wants to speak, how do we get?
Do we have someone else opposed to the applicant? Please come to the podium and speak and give us your name.
How you doing? My name's Paul Devine. I live in
Okay.
Cardinal Woods, 3400 South Wood. And I'm probably going to echo a lot of the comments that have been expressed already. We certainly don't want to be at odds, yet our concern is that this small property already has one very large building. It appears to be, I haven't measured it, it appears to be at least 20 foot tall or larger. And now another fairly large building is going to be constructed on this small property. And by encroaching on the 35-foot building line, behind this property is a small slope that heads up into the south side of our subdivision. And without having seen it, without really knowing what's going on, one concern possibly could be any type of erosion on that hill, if it's excavated into at all.
Does it slope
And I
to the
don't know the
north?
details on that.
Does that hill slope to the north towards your subdivision, or does it slope from your subdivision to the south?
Our subdivision is north, his property is to the south, and there's a grade difference between where the construction, new construction is proposed and to where our rear property line is located. So
My question is, does the property slope to the south?
it does indeed.
From Cardinal Woods down to his property?
That's correct,
Okay.
yes.
So on to his property.
Also, there, without knowing how, without having seen where this building exactly is going to go, there is a 5-foot, at least on the copy I have of the plat, shows a 5-foot utility easement on the west and north side. So I don't know whether this is going to encroach on that at all.
He's asking, I think it could be 8 feet, as I recall, right?
Well,
Yes.
on the north side, he's 65 feet away from the property line. so
65 feet south of,
The north line, his north
The
line.
north side of the
8 feet.
property line, so
to the west,
I can't see
To
it.
the east of,
to the east of the west property line.
okay.
So,
That, you don't have to worry about the utilities.
okay.
Is that right?
I don't have any questions. Oh,
The other concern that we have with the construction of an additional building is the number of vehicles and pieces of equipment on the property. It's my understanding that a residential property, which this is residential agricultural, is still residential, cannot have long-standing either pieces of equipment or vehicles sitting on the property. We have noticed cars, multitude of cars, trucks, a backhoe, a front-end loader, and a large trailer on the property consistently. So I'm not sure whether this is any type of a code violation, but it's a concern for our subdivision. This is potentially to us, we see not only this building, but possibly the request for a permit of another building. And we just don't believe that the property is large enough for everything that's going on there. We believe that it's going to impact the values of our home.
Now, in your HOA, maybe the other gal could answer it, but your HOA, you all are allowed a storage building or not a storage building in your HOA?
No, we're not allowed any buildings, outbuildings on our property.
Okay, but the houses are typically about 20 feet apart?
Our homes are about, yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right, so much closer together than anything that's on his property at this particular time,
At this time,
at this point? Okay.
yes, at this time.
Just wanted to clarify on that one,
Yeah.
so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for coming. Do we have anyone else who care to speak before this board here in opposition to the applicant? Well,
I guess I've got a couple more questions then for
for the,
Mark Williamson.
okay, so
If you
now,
could come back that
I have
way.
a question for staff too. If he were to follow the setback, I'm trying to remember what
Well, it was,
setback is that he's trying to get a variance from
35 foot.
on the west.
mm-hmm,
What is that, what is the setback that is supposed to be on the west property line?
it's 35.
35.
And he's wanting to go
So-
with 8, I think.
Am I correct if you wanted to build this 35 feet from the west property line, which would be closer to his house, he could without coming before this board, correct?
That's correct,
Okay.
as long as it's 10 feet away from his house.
Yeah, and it's not, okay, so,
Wouldn't that put it even closer to his neighbors than what he's actually asking for
It
now.
would, and he could actually go farther to the north too,
Right.
without coming before this board, correct?
So by doing it where you're trying to get a variance, you're actually trying to keep that building away from where they're,
Correct. It's tucked
and
behind the
spread that
trees,
out a
and it's
little
got a pine tree next to it, and yeah, it's out of the way on the side of the property. And I mean, by code, I'm allowed 15% of my backyard for uses of shops. I don't know why we're talking about all these other issues when it has nothing to do with the actual ruling of the variance.
how long have you lived there?
It's been almost 2 years,
2 years?
yeah.
Okay. I had a question related to the you have a business,
I do not. It's all personal.
so it's all personal stuff?
Yes.
Things?
As far as I'm concerned, it's agricultural use, so
Yeah.
I don't take it and go make money with it, so I've just used it for my own use. So, just been landscaping stuff basically, which is farm equipment. They don't really specify what farm equipment is. So.
No? What? The guy's shaking his head.
No, he cannot have that equipment on the property.
Okay.
Pardon?
He cannot have that equipment on the property.
Because you've determined that a backhoe is not.
It's not farm
it's not
equipment.
farm.
It's not a backhoe.
That,
That-
okay.
Are we referring to the tractor look that's on
Excavator.
the Odell type little unit that's in this
Excavator,
picture here?
right, orange one.
Yeah. This is the only thing it's got.
That's one of
It has
the,
a-
the John Deere.
No, I was looking at her picture.
That's a Bobcat.
This one here.
That's a Bobcat. This is the orange
Well,
color.
it looks like it's probably like a
Yeah,
farm
that,
tractor with a front attachment kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just a tracked excavator. It's got a bucket on it. And then there's a skid steer there as well.
So they were referring to this orange,
Yeah, it's an excavator.
pardon?
An excavator.
It's an excavator?
Yeah.
And you're saying that that's not allowed, is farm equipment?
okay. Yeah, well, of course, the Bobcat on the northwest, the yellow thing, definitely cannot be there. This orange piece of equipment,
Is a mini traco type thing? Okay.
Yes.
For like
and
putting in-
using it for,
Well, I guess
Oh,
putting
personal
maybe
use.
service.
Ditches? Who knows? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I have land. I dug out a pad for the concrete, so.
so this is for the construction that's happening on the property.
I mean, it's my own personal use. I own it.
Oh, that's,
Well, that doesn't really make any difference whether you own it or not. I mean,
doesn't
I
matter.
can't have a bulldozer in my backyard either, and I may own it.
Are you zone residential?
Where I live is owned residential, yes.
And you wouldn't be able to, no.
I mean, that doesn't affect us. You know, that's a complaint
Right.
between them and the city, and, I mean,
Okay.
that doesn't affect this board.
I guess the other question I'd have would be back to the HOA people. I could just ask across there, but your HOA, this piece of property was here the entire time your development was in place, and it's always been this residential agricultural piece of property. So it's always been there. It's just you don't like the extra buildings or what he's doing with it. But he's not part of your HOA, correct? Correct. All right.
Was there all the, back before he bought the property, was it just a house there and basically it? Correct. So there was no other equipment around it or anything? No. Okay. So, and you got trucks there, you got trailers, I see here a truck with, it looks like a trailer on the back of it.
he can have a trailer that's up to 15 feet.
But
From
all the
tone-
other
from tone
equipment
to bumper.
has been moved in there just within the last couple of years since you've lived there, is that correct?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the
Is,
question?
the equipment that you have surrounding the house and so forth, was that there? It wasn't there when you
No.
bought it?
No.
So you put it in there since then?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah. My question would be, I mean, it's a discussion a little bit for us, but, you know, I know that there's a conflict between the HOA would like pristine grounds outside their HOA.
Right.
However, HOA is all confined of what is OHOA, and it's not that. Landscaping being all what it is, or the other, if the variance wasn't even asked for. He'd actually be closer to you, the HOA's houses, than what he's asking for. So part of me almost thinks that he's trying to be a benefit by saying it's moving it and getting the variance, which personally I don't have a big problem with that variance, because if it's going to be within a residential, it would be 5 feet, is what you all said. And that's almost the argument that the HOA people are having, is that they are having a residential area that they want to live in, and some of his equipment seems less residential. So if you're going to have an argument about it, we want it all to be residential, then you'd almost be, you're arguing for him to have his building with his 8-foot setback by saying you'd like it to be residential. The question is that he's got some equipment there that they'd rather it not be. So my question would be to you, with the added building that you're putting in here, will any of this other equipment be able to be put inside a building, off the property, or something of that
It has
sort?
an adequate sized door to house all that stuff, actually. So I don't really like to keep it outside. It gets rained on and doesn't like to start when it's cold, so.
Okay. I guess that's,
Whether or not you can keep the Bobcat is not our, has nothing to do with us. I don't know whether you can or not. If it's used for snow removal, I don't know if you plow with it. I mean, so
personal choice.
my concern is how do you get along with these guys, and whether or not you would want to have a little meeting, not here, but sometime, and say, look, I can put it here. Would you rather have me put it here and it's closer to them? And since the hill slopes down, the elevation might be higher, they would see it more easily. I don't know.
I mean, if right now where I have the pad port, like I said, that can just be a wash and it can be a parking spot, and then it'll just go, I'll meet the 35-foot setback, and it'll be apparent to all of them. It'll be visible, so.
Yeah, that's my concern for you guys, is that, he could do it without anybody stopping him, that you might be able to stop him for the Bobcat. I don't know, that's another issue, but he could build it closer to you, because he's 65 feet from your south property line. He could go up to 35 feet, and he could go closer so you'd see it more easily. So, and there's nothing that anybody could do about it legally. So I'm just throwing that out. Is it better for him to go ahead and for us to give him a variance to put it there, or like he says, he'll just use it for something else and build it closer to you? And that's the question that I would have for you guys, if you wanted to answer that, or maybe you guys should get together and we should continue this and see if we can't work something out. I'm not, okay.
Yeah, no, this is a tough
Stuart's
one.
smiling, I better shut up.
Well, I don't know if it's particularly a good idea that you ask the audience with how they feel a
That's
variance should be granted.
Yeah,
Right.
And this is what the board's here for.
that's,
Why don't we, if nobody else has anything else to add, we have our own discussion after to close it and decide whether we're going to do with it.
Okay. Well,
Unless somebody has something else they want to add.
is there anything else? Anybody else? Do we want to have another speaker that's, I guess we can still keep it open for the public?
do you want the decision made now, or do you want to continue this so that maybe there isn't as much tension?
So,
So I prefer to get it finished right now, so I'm
Sure.
taking days off.
Okay.
let's hear what this gentleman.
Okay.
Yes, my name is Randy Goyer. I'm on 22103 East 33rd Terrace Court South. My question on this whole deal is, if this is residential agricultural, what is he growing? If it's agricultural, what is he growing? What is he going to use all this equipment for?
It's not dependent on that.
Yeah, that's just based on how it was original, and until it changes, it stays there. But I'm sure that Brian or Stuart would have much more better perspective.
I mean, this is a board of adjustments, so all they're dealing with is setback. It's zoned agricultural. It's been that way for a long time. Much of that area, the east side of the city, has been that way for decades. And one could argue the Cardinal Woods subdivision actually, you know, encroached on what was the agricultural
Right.
zoning, and actually a rezoning with the PU, whatever, I think it's like R4 PUD.
Right.
Was passed and downzoned from agriculture to create Cardinal Woods, but that didn't change the zoning of the adjacent property that was agricultural. Now, if he was approaching us for the first time wanting to zone that RA, we would not do that because he does not have proper acreage in order to do so. But it's legal non-conforming in its size.
Right.
I mean, it's zoned what it's zoned until it's rezoned.
Right.
Okay. Earlier last year, we had another representation of surrounding neighborhoods on the sale of the Casey's there at Artie Mize and Pink Hill Road.
I remember that.
And the question that was there was the potential that the fellow who was going to buy it and use it as offices, putting a big fence around the place, was going to move his construction equipment up there. Well, if you're not going to allow construction equipment to be placed there, why do we have to have construction equipment in a neighborhood, whether it's agriculture or whether it's regular residential?
I think we voted against that Casey's project because of the barriers and wall, just a lot of things that came up on that, as I recall. And we voted the way that you would have liked us to vote, I believe, on Casey's. This is a little different.
Okay, well, if this is that different, maybe we need to work with our neighbor so that potentially if he's going to have the larger outbuildings, which you're right, okay, but can he do some landscaping to help, you know, do some cover-up of your...
I think,
No, we don't want a
I
fence.
think if we could hold on just a
I'd
second.
rather something like,
Brian,
just some,
He's got a little bit, something he's wanting to add there.
Now, looking at this here, apparently there is a zoning case actually being looked at about this. I wasn't, you know, coming in here, I wasn't aware that there was currently a codes case against this. So that, you know, what we have here is, you know, we have this Board of Adjustment case that has to do with setback issues. And, you know, we create a venue for the neighborhood to come and speak about something that's not actually your purview.
Right.
Is what's going on here. And the vehicle for dealing with the issue that they want dealt with is through the code enforcement process, because the allegation is that these, you know, that there are businesses being run or something, the property is being used improperly. That's a codes issue that's not anything to do with the construction of a shed that's allowed according to a permit.
Right. So it's kind of like cross-references, you know, as much as we want.
So our thing is we're just dealing with the setback issue, not
Yeah.
whether it's a construction
Yep. We have,
being, where they're bringing in construction equipment, we're not dealing with that, right?
that's correct.
That's a code,
okay.
which is, you know.
Is there anybody else that's?
Thank you for coming up. Is there anyone else here who wants to speak in behalf of, before we close the public hearing? Okay. Well, we've had the people against, we had the owner spoke and he's had his your rebuttal. I guess what we have to do right now is try to decide what we want to do as far as a decision here,
Okay. I have,
right?
You have to close the public
And
hearing.
so now the public hearing has been closed.
okay, the biggest thing I have, the proper that he's against Brian, you could probably tell us that as well, that on, I think it's the west side, it's agricultural as well, that empty lot on the,
That is actually zoned, I believe, residential, but it's functionally agricultural,
Okay.
I believe.
all right.
Yeah.
So the thought that, again, I have is if we don't give them the variance, the building would actually be 28 feet or so closer to the neighbors there. And I think their biggest thing that I'm hearing them say is that they just don't want more and more buildings, but we aren't here to address that either.
We're here.
Because he's not asking for more buildings.
So actually, it would be a case of where they scoot it
Yeah,
further
it would have to be
east,
scooted over
then
closer.
it's gonna be closer to them anyways. Is that
In
what
other
you're saying?
words, there's nothing that this board can do to prevent him from building that building in a place that would be more upsetting to the neighbors
Right.
than where it is now. And the question I have, can we require, if we grant the variance, can we require that with that variance would come some landscaping that would help shield the building from the neighbors?
Yes, you could add that, so that could be something helpful that you could do. You could add a landscaping requirement to your,
For the-
your
for the new-
variance,
For the
yes.
new building that's already been, the concrete's already been poured, right?
Well, landscaping could be
But the land-
trees. I mean, you know, the biggest thing
Trees
we're
or
talking about
shrubs
is
or what, yeah.
trees. I mean, this, the piece that he's talking here with this
So-
is farther away than three of their houses, at least two of their houses
true.
are. You know,
So
if we
actually
give
it's
him the
better.
variance now.
It looks like there's some trees to the north that would shield it from the houses that are at the west end.
Well,
Anyway.
These on here, I gave mine away.
It's
but-
down in the valley.
See, I,
There's already trees there
Mhm.
along that whole, look like to the back
mhm,
side.
right.
So while
Is this the area where he's,
well,
is this it down in
This
here?
would be his north side, and you keep coming over, I think she had a picture of,
So
yeah,
this-
there's trees all along
Yeah, see those trees there?
Mm-hmm,
there. Yeah,
that's a little island there,
but,
island
you
of
know, we're
trees.
talking about putting it there, that's farther enough away.
Now, this isn't the,
No.
that's
it's-
just,
It's this one here, which
Is-
is even farther away than.
but is this the one that's where he's doing the construction, or?
This is one that he's talking about doing that, I believe.
Is that this?
At least, I don't know if that's the one that's referred to. The position-wise, it ought to be over down here, because if you look at this,
Hard to say.
that's into that.
Okay, sure. Okay, sure, go ahead. He's gotten calls from his home, his wife's
That
ill, so.
would be my feedback on that.
So what we're saying here, do we,
Well,
we're looking at just, the variance on the,
yeah,
the-
the variance, if we were to grant this variance to please the neighbors, I would want to put a caveat on there that that he would have to put some kind of landscaping, visual screening, maybe
or some kind of. screening.
evergreens that would show that he's willing to work with his neighbors. Because if we don't grant the variance, then the neighbors may not understand it now, but it will be a lot worse for them. And it would be more in their view than it would be here.
Right.
Question is, okay, but that building's over, you know, behind these others, you know, to what extent landscaping would be required for him? 2 trees or 10 trees? You know, you're not gonna, I don't think we'd be in the right place to saying, we're gonna require him to put pine trees all the way across the
No.
back of his property.
Can't do that.
But
Do that.
we could say, to soften some of his property, if he'd be willing to put in some trees, and that would pretty much give him
By
something.
his testimony, he's using that equipment for landscaping.
Yes,
And that's part of his agricultural use is he wants to make that an attractive piece of land from his own testimony.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's my feeling. I don't know what you guys think, but I think we're getting close. What do you think, boss?
What do you think, Jack?
well,
It's a hard one anyway, but
I think
the
shielding,
soft,
you shield in some way.
the new building that's gonna be built has to be shielded? Is that what you're saying?
the height of the
well, we can't, we
I don't
close the
know.
public hearing, but I don't think it's, what's he say, it's,
Oh,
we know what his height
eight-
of the building is supposed to be.
I do not know the current
sorry.
height. I don't have the permit.
Oh, just 10-foot building?
10-foot sidewalls, it
Okay.
says. That's not,
Not a big building, so,
no.
okay.
But you'll have a door large enough in the end to take, or somewhere to bring in equipment that otherwise you're parking on the lot, I think he's saying by his testimony.
Then I would suggest that we would approve this based on adding a little landscape to soften
Soften the,
it to his neighbors and allow the variance, which
Okay.
will keep it farther away than
yeah, because
anything else,
that's true,
even if he
because it-
didn't ask.
How we phrase that, we might want to say reasonable screening or something that, I mean, it's all subject to interpretation because we're not,
Well, that's
No,
what I
that's
said.
not our
I would
job
just
to-
say that we put, some trees, something, shrubs, something of some kind of a vertical.
some,
You can't make him put in a whole bunch of different things, trying to do a building. All we're doing is the variance or no variance, period. If he doesn't get the variance, it's gonna be closer to them
that's right.
than this,
So
so I
maybe it needs to
suggest
be some conifers or something that's,
Yeah.
some pine tree family,
just kind of soften the.
soften the view.
I think you need to jump in there with a number, otherwise it's,
Let's say 4 trees. That would be, the building is gonna be, how big?
18 by 30, 18 by 31.
18 by 31. So it's gonna be 18 feet across the back.
See, our maximum, minimum height for a pine tree is 6 feet
Well,
when
conifers.
planted.
We could go with something of a poplar type or something.
Well,
Some type of vertical tree, something.
Well, sometimes those take longer to grow. Pine trees might grow a little faster, but
yeah.
I'm gonna say the minimum height for our pine tree for normal landscaping is at least 6 feet in height. Just,
Why
as the
don't,
base.
why don't we leave that part, say that there has to be something, they work with some of them to say what they, and,
Work with staff on.
well, no, work with their HOAs and try to make some agreement to what they put in and come with some kind of reasonable amount, as long as there's a few.
Can I say something about the landscaping? But that's not gonna make a difference, so we're not gonna worry about that.
Okay,
Okay.
that seems like a dead end there. I'd approve it as it is.
Yeah, really.
Okay,
I guess.
I will make a motion that we approve the variance as it is with the 8 feet to case,
Just want to say one thing, unless I heard this wrong. One of you stated that the property was not suitable for farming. And then you turn around and say it's okay to leave it rated, classified as farming. Don't make any sense to me.
This is a tough one.
case number,
agricultural, I don't think necessarily means farming.
zoning
goat,
zoning is what a property is allowed to have,
right,
not what's there.
right.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
not like the tax classification. It's
Right.
completely different.
Well, back to my motion. I'm gonna motion that we approve case number 18999-24 as written.
Well, I would like to see us say with the addition of 3,
Well, you heard them say they didn't even care.
well, that's one guy.
Well, however, yes,
There's actually trees along that hill that separates our
Right.
properties.
We need speaking into a microphone because it's not heard on television.
Okay.
Well,
well, we closed the hearing, so
We
officially
closed
we
the
can't. You can't.
so what do we,
But there it is. That's what I was saying. There are trees there already.
there's trees
I
there
don't think
already.
it's an issue. I think it's a cross relevant.
Well, I'm thinking of these people that are on the south that could look across there. It would be nice to have maybe 2 or
Let's
3
have 'em put
trees on the east side,
2 or 3 trees on the east side to soften
on
up
the east
building.
side,
Of the,
to
Of
soft, on the
the,
east side, on the northern
accessory
portion, so
building?
that,
Why don't we do that then?
let's just do that.
All right.
That we're, the neighbors know we're doing, giving them.
I'm
time.
going to put a motion that we would accept case 18999-24 with adding 3 pine-type trees to your east side of that building to soften the view to your HOA neighbors.
That's 6 foot or taller.
6 foot or
Yeah,
more
something like that.
pine.
Pine-type trees to just soften.
Doesn't have pine, so they don't kill the grass.
Pardon?
Some sort of conifer evergreen type thing. I don't think I could care less really, but, you know, as long as it softens the view of the building and they can see some
Yeah,
landscape.
it needs to be a pine, some sort of needle tree that's evergreen.
Right. But there's a lot of varieties there, so,
Pine tree,
pine tree,
conifer,
conifers of some,
two kind of trees, Christmas trees and regular. It's the Christmas tree.
so you have my motion.
All right, so let's go ahead and,
I'll second.
there you go, okay, you made the motion.
I made a motion with three pine trees.
Three pine trees, and we have
It was
a
seconded. So now we're
second
good.
by Roy, all right. So are we ready to finally vote? All right, so, with the,
John Madison.
with the additional pine trees added to soften we will take a vote on so I guess let's vote. Roy Brown,
Yes.
Jack Lehman,
Yes.
Dan Sunderland,
Yes.
Robert Jones, yes. So that's been approved. Case number 18-999-24, Mark Williamson, a variance request to the accessory building standards for the property at 22008 East Pink Hill Road. Thank you all for coming out. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, well,
Now we just have.
all right, now we got to do the approval of the minutes from the November 15th meeting, and I made there was a typo error, and I gave it to,
Yeah.
before the meeting started, it was supposed to be.
Should be a D-E-H-O-F.
DeHoff, D-E-H.
LP is an H.
Yeah, it's supposed to be an H.
So it's
Deltoff?
D-E-H-O-F-F?
Yes.
D-E-H-O-F-F, yes.
All right, so that needs to be changed also. Did you hear that?
Okay. And we also have the date should have been December 20th.
December the 20th, exactly.
Okay. So
And
you want to approve those as amended? Approve
Yeah.
the minutes as
Yes.
amended?
Yes.
Approve as noted.
Approved as noted, the revisions, or the corrections, I guess they're called. So we'll just say, I make a motion, that's just
We don't have-
by acclamation, approval of the minutes with the said corrections with the, and are we ready? And those in favor,
Aye.
will say yes,
Yes.
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 Those opposed will say no, and the yeses have the minutes approved.
There we go.
This meeting has been adjourned, 8:20.